Let's face it, authors need to stop focusing on marketing and start focusing on writing their books. So recently, I read Full-Time Author by Eileen Cook and Crystal Hunt, and I really enjoyed this book. This is a good book. If you're wanting to someday make money off of your writing, if you're wanting to invest in your writing and to learn more about marketing, it is a really good book. So I'm not sitting here to trash this book or to say that the authors are wrong in every respect, and that, yeah, I'm not here to trash on the book. But after I read it, I felt a little bit off, like there was something I was missing, like something that wasn't quite clicking in the right way, if that makes sense. Then, not too long after I finished reading that book, I watched a really good video here on YouTube. It's by Book Chats with Shelley, and it was called Audra Winter and the Problem of the Book Talk Era Publishing Industry. Authors, stop rushing your book. So both the video and the book got me thinking. And so I wanted to sit down and chat with you about being a writer in the modern era and the pressures that come with that, and the importance of being a writer first and foremost, and a marketer second, if that makes sense. So I've got my tea and I've got some notes on some thoughts that I've been having. And I would love to have you join along with me on this conversation of what being a writer in the modern space looks like and some of the pressures that come with that. So I'm going to talk a little bit on here about the whole Audra Winter situation, but I want to make it clear, like very crystal clear, that I'm not here to insult her or her novel. And I want to touch more on this idea and this pressure that I've seen growing in general to be a marketer or an entrepreneur rather than an author, if that makes sense. One of the biggest issues that I think Audra Winter has is that she sees herself more as an entrepreneur than as an author. And I've seen a lot of people talking about this, and so I'm not necessarily adding anything super new to the conversation in that regard, but I do think it's a very poignant fact, that someone who publishes a book sees themselves as an entrepreneur, as the owner of a business, as a six-figure author, whatever it is, rather than being an author. And she even uses the word entrepreneur before she uses the word author pretty frequently. And very recently, she posted a new update video reintroducing herself, which I thought overall was a really good video. I think, there's nothing wrong with her wanting to kind of start over, start from scratch. She's put a lot of time and effort into this world, into these books, into this story. There's nothing wrong with wanting to start fresh. But something that really stuck out to me when I watched that video was she put entrepreneur before she put writer. So here, I'll show you the video.
I believe I've been improperly introduced to you. I'm a 22-year-old entrepreneur, writer, and naturalist.
So the truth is, I feel the pressure to do the exact same thing, and so I'm not really blaming her. I can't really blame her. I feel the pressure to do the same thing as an author. I really, really enjoy marketing. I got my degree in social media management because I really enjoy marketing. I like making videos and Instagram posts and like newsletters and blogs and all these things about my work. I really enjoy the art part of books. I make my own book covers because I can't really afford to hire that out, but I really like the art aspect of storytelling. I think it's really cool how those things can go hand in hand. And I have my husband do the interior illustrations because I really like art. I think it's really cool. And so I relate to Audra in that way. I relate to her passion for art and art made by real artists rather than AI and all of that. And I I dream about finishing my middle grade fantasy series so that I can make a special edition hardcover version with fancy sprayed edges and interior artwork that's color and all of these things. I have this dream down the line of doing that, and I really want to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but that's kind of secondary. I might be getting ahead of myself. In that way, I really relate to Audra in this situation. Obviously, there's a lot more conversation to be had around this topic, but there's a lot more videos you can watch about it. Lots of people have talked about it. They can cover it much more in depth than I can. Um, so if you want to know more about that whole situation, there are a lot of videos that you can look into. The point is, like, it's easy for me to get lost in the marketing aspect of being a writer and forget the most important part, which is writing and being a good writer and working on my craft and developing my stories and my storytelling. I felt myself getting lost in that marketing, fun, exciting aspect of things when I read this book. I kind of like got down this rabbit trail of like all these plans that I could have down the line of ways that I can market the story, way that I could start marketing things now, and how I could start doing things differently. And I was getting so excited about it that I was getting lost in it. And even though I should have been writing or plotting my third book in the series, I was focusing more on figuring out ways to market the story than actually writing the next book in the series, which doesn't even make any sense. There's nothing wrong with enjoying marketing or being an entrepreneur or owning a business. But the fact is, that's not the point. You know, that's not why I started writing. I didn't get into writing because I like marketing. I happen to like both marketing and writing. But the writing should be my priority, which kind of brings me into my next point. I started telling stories before I could even write them down. I used to make my older sister sit down at our Windows XP computer and type them out for me. And like I would just tell her stories and make her write them down. And she's such a good sister that she did because she loves me. And then once I could write a little bit, I would write them down on paper and I would do little illustrations to go with them. And I would, I think it's a very common story among writers, right? That like you start really young and you do as much storytelling as you can, and you capture as many people's attention as you can, and you want to tell stories. That's just all that you want out of life, even from a young age. Obviously, everyone's story is a little bit different, but I've heard a lot of writers say very similar things that, yeah, they just really loved storytelling and they loved writing all these stories. And they look back and they find all these old journals and all these old loose papers everywhere from world building and telling stories. And the stories don't even necessarily make sense, but they were passionate about them at the time. And that's what really matters. But somewhere along the line, I think I lost sight of that. I think as authors, we all kind of have, if I'm being honest, with TikTok and Threads and Instagram and any social media you can think of. It's just market, 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 market. Hop on the trend, make sure that you're posting every day, maybe post multiple times a day, get people's attention, focus on getting your book out there because no one's going to see it if you don't market it. We scroll for hours and hours instead of actually writing. We make content about writing instead of actually writing. We tell people about the books that we're going to write, but we don't actually sit down and write them. And I'm not trying to shame anyone. I'm admitting that this is something that I've struggled with myself and I'm actively struggling with because, quite frankly, I'd much rather interact with book talk or author talk or whatever than sit down and write my story because one of those is a lot harder than the other one, and it's not scrolling on social media for hours. But something Shelley said in her video that really stuck out to me was something along the lines, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, can you imagine Tolkien or C.S. Lewis sitting down and writing the Lord of the Rings or Narnia in between newsletter deadlines? It just really stuck out to me because she's right. Like the idea of that is really silly. She pointed out that it took Tolkien like 12 years to write the Lord of the Rings. And it shows. It's such a rich story with so many layers and so much, I mean, just beauty and depth and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. But can you imagine what it would have looked like if he had been pressured to write that in a month? The idea of that is absolutely comical. Like writing the Lord of the Rings in a month, that's comical. That is ridiculous. Just an absolutely ridiculous idea. So why are we feeling pressured to publish 20 books so that we can make 50K a year? Like why are we doing rapid release? Why are we writing in a specific genre that we don't actually enjoy just because we know that that's what sells? You know, why are we writing tropes that we don't care about so that we have something that we can market well? Why can't we just focus on writing good books and get around to marketing them when the time comes for that? Can't can't we just enjoy the creative process? Do you remember what it was like when you first started writing? Like, do you remember how much passion and joy and just enjoyment you got from sitting down and writing your story and not having to worry about if it would sell? It just was what it was, and it didn't even have to be good. But you were able to take the time with it and make it good. You can't really make something really good, I don't think, if you're publishing 20 of them in a year. You know what I mean? Like, that's insane. That's insane. And maybe someone can. I'm not trying to discount that. Maybe someone genuinely can write a really good book in a month, but I'm not that person. Like, I'm not that person. And I want to enjoy the creative process again, and I want to enjoy being a writer over being a marketer, an entrepreneur, or a business owner. I got into this because I like writing. I didn't get into this because I wanted to sell books. I used to say very confidently, you know, if one person reads my book and gets something out of it, that's enough. But I honestly struggled a lot with my last book launch because I made one sale on launch day and it was to my mom. And I'm honored that my mom bought my book, don't get me wrong. But I was like, did I mean it? Did I mean it? When I said that it didn't matter how many people read it, as long as someone read it and enjoyed it. Because I knew, looking at that sales page, I knew there had already been two kids in the target age range who had read the book and enjoyed it and even left their reviews, like, because they're homeschooled and their mom made it part of school. Like, they genuinely enjoyed it. And I knew that, but it wasn't enough in that moment because I only made one sale. And that's not what I wanted to be. Like, that's not what I wanted to be as a writer. Like, I enjoy these stories. I write them because I love them and I have passion for middle grade fantasy stories and the impact that they can have on just one person if it's read at the right time, you know? But I was losing sight of that. Like, on launch day, I was understandably disappointed that I only made one sale. And I've made more sales since then. Launch day isn't as big a deal, I think, as everyone makes it out to be. But still, like, even if I never made another sale, even if I never made another sale, did I lose sight of the point? Not that it's bad to be disappointed. It wasn't wrong for me to be disappointed because I put a lot of time and effort into those books. Yeah, it's not wrong to be disappointed. But I think I was disappointed because I put my hopes in the wrong thing. And the disappointment lasted much longer than it should have. And that kind of goes into my next point. I have a lot of strong opinions about the modern publishing industry and especially social media's impact on that industry, which I kind of mentioned before. But that's another video for another day. If you're interested in that, you can let me know in the comments. If you want to hear some really good thoughts on it, you can check out this video. I've linked it, and I should be putting a screenshot up here. It does a really good deep dive into the way that modern writing, I think, is impacting the general sphere of things and all of that. But that being said, I do think that there's big pressure from platforms like TikTok to get new books out fast, like really, really fast, and for them to fall into a specific genre, especially. Like, if you're not writing romantasy or dark romance or even contemporary romance, honestly, like, if your books don't have romance, good luck selling them. It's really hard for you to get a foothold and to get an audience. It's not that they don't exist, but it's not what's being pushed, right? It's not what people are looking for. People who are avid readers are often consuming lots and lots and lots of books in the exact same genre, and most of that is romance. I write middle grade fantasy. Let's be honest here. Um, there is no market for that. There's no market for that. Yeah, kids aren't reading as much as they used to, and I think even if when they used to read, it probably was not Yeah, it wasn't easy to find your audience, and online certainly isn't the place to find an audience for your middle grade novel, but I digress. The question I have for myself then, and even for you, does that mean that I should stop writing? Because honestly, I think that if I focus too much on being a marketer and an entrepreneur, that would stop me from writing this genre and this age range. And it would, yeah, it would make me pick up something that I'm not actually all that passionate about. I love middle grade fantasy. I'm writing it for a reason. Like, I got into it for a reason. I think middle grade fantasy captures this whimsy and beauty that fantasy stories and other stories targeted at older readers can't quite capture in the exact same way, if that makes sense. I write it because I'm passionate about it. Because all of the books that made the biggest impact on me, my moral compass, my own writing journey, all of those books are books that I read when I was under the age of 14. They stuck with me the longest. That's why I write, to make that same impact, hopefully, on even just one kid, not to make $50,000 a year. I don't plan on writing middle grade fantasy for the rest of my life. I really enjoy the young adult genre as well. I have ideas for stories that are definitely more mature, but fall into the same fantasy, sci-fi, dystopian kind of genre. But right now, I'm writing middle grade, and I've committed to a series that is going to be 5 books, and I am currently working on book 3 of 5. I'm not making hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales. In fact, I haven't made any money on my last book. Just, being transparent with you, with all of the costs that it takes to publish a book, I haven't made that money back. But what does that matter? Like, really, genuinely, truly, what does it matter? Did I start writing so I could make a bunch of sales? Or did I start writing because I love to write? You know? There's nothing wrong with being passionate about or enjoying the marketing aspect of being a writer. There's nothing wrong with that. It can be fun, it can be engaging. It's a really good way to build a community and get to know more people and learn more about the world in general. But I also think it's really, really important that we as authors don't get dragged down by the expectation to market even more than we write, if that makes sense. I want to challenge myself to be as passionate about writing as I was when I was a kid. To be as invested in my writing and my quality as I am in my marketing, even more so, because good marketing can't save a bad book. And I am not sitting here pretending that my books are perfect. They're not. They are not perfect, but I did put a lot of time and effort into them, and I am taking feedback that I hear from people and I'm applying it to the next books in the series, and I'm learning and I'm growing, and that is what writing is about. That's what creative passions are all about. So don't let this pressure weigh you down. Just write. Enjoy your stories and let yourself take as much time as you need to make your story really, really good. I know it's good to release on a schedule. I have a hope that I can release a book a year. But if it takes me 2 years or 3 years to get the next book out so that it can be really, really good, then I think the people who need to read it will be patient enough to wait for that. So, thanks for sitting with me and listening to my rant. I really enjoy these kind of conversations, and I just think it's important that we remember that as creatives and as creatively minded people, we can be passionate about multiple things. But when you're making a product that you're going to sell and people are going to pay money for, you want to make sure that you make it good as it can be. And even if you never make hundreds of thousands of dollars, even if you never are able to make 50K a year based on the 20 books that you've published, even if that doesn't happen for you, you're not a failure of a writer. You're doing a wonderful job, and I believe in you. So keep up the hard work, and I'll see you next time.